Righto. Okay, folks. Just been another crazy week as usual. We're talking government in this country, many countries. Okay, we got a few on here. Might as well get rolling. Where am I going to start? A few things lined up here. So I'll just check, make sure the audio is good. Looks like the audio is fine. We should be good to go. So, do you trust your government? There's Marie. I know I don't. Hello, Lynn. I bet you don't have the snow down where you are, like we're getting here. Getting cold. Okay, let's see. Where am I going to start? Could start with a video, or we could start with, so let's see, I got to use the other mouse here for this. What is it? Okay. Canada, the government of Canada, that is, the Liberal government of Canada, has bilateral relations with the Democratic Republic of Congo. We send money to the Democratic Republic of Congo. And how much? Well, enough. More than enough. So the Congolese students in Canada, in 2023 there were 4,020 Congolese studying in Canada. Well, good for them. So what did we do? Trade relations between Canada and the DRC are modest. In 2023, trade between Canada and the DRC totaled $190.4 million. 2023, the value of Canadian exports to the DRC was $23.2 million. Okay, that's bad math. Canada exports mostly transport equipment, nuclear reactors, I was surprised to see that, animal products, textiles, machinery, and electric appliances and mineral products. But what do we get back? What do we import from the Congo? 2023, we imported 167.2 million, primarily imports metals, wood, and nuclear reactors. How does that work? We export nuclear reactors to Congo and we import nuclear reactors from Congo. I guess you have to be smart to be in the government to make that work. So anyways, what do they do with the money? We know that Congo is pretty corrupt, right? So I came across this video, and that's why I decided to look at what how much money that we actually deal with the Congo. And they built a bridge in the Congo. So I thought, well, okay, it's not just being pilfered. And well, let's see, I'll bring this up. I'll show you the bridge. I'm not saying this is one that we put money into this, but this is how they build bridges in the Congo. This is a grand opening of a new bridge. Here it is. Hang on to your seats. They're just opening it up.
Derrière sécurité. 5 mètres, 5 mètres.
Go!
Mwaka ndani mule hamuna watu.
Well, it lasted for a little while anyways. You got a few across. And then That was it. So maybe they'll ask for some more money and maybe they'll build a better bridge. Maybe they should send a couple of engineers over there to show them how to build a bridge. Be a good start. Anyways, just a little giggle for the start to show where our money's going, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to did they spike those? No. No, they just threw them down there. Come on, folks. Get across. Phil, Paul. Okay. Here, it's amazing how many people have faith in this government and they trust the government and they think, oh, they're doing just great. You see some comments online, they're probably just bots. But, because anybody I can't say that. I did talk to a guy the other day and he figured that Trump's evil and climate change, human caused climate change is real, and obviously with those two things coming out of him, those two comments, I figured I better not go any farther because I know which way his political thoughts lie. So I figured I better drop that. The guy's a bit of a moron anyways. So, but what, this is, I stumbled on this one here. This is I found it quite interesting. It's 12 and a half minutes long, but they've got a lot to say about what's going on. So I'm going to show you this video and, yeah, I think you're going to agree with it. Pretty sure you will. That's why I'm showing it. Gotta change you over here. Okay, here we go.
Propaganda or patriotism? We're going to get into some ads that have been deluging all of our social media feeds, podcasts, and the internet. And to help break it all down, I've got Harrison Lohman in the studio with me, the Hub's managing editor and our resident media guru, the host of Full Press. Harrison, great to be in conversation.
Richard, thank you so much for having me.
So let's first play this ad. Why don't we do that for our audience, just so they get a sense of what we're talking about. I'm sure you've either seen or heard of this ad, but let's spend an excruciating 20 or so seconds together.
Canada, it's time for more us, because we're more than just a place on a map. We're an attitude, one with more empathy than ego, more unity than division, more grit, go, and we got this. The more we choose to stand up as our most flag-flying, maple-leaf-buying, local adventuring selves, the more we are the true north, unbreakable, strong, and free.
There we go. Harrison, excruciating indeed, packed with cliches. But what I wanted to talk with you about is we always expect government, kind of engages in soft propaganda of this sort. Different governments of different political stripes have done this over the years. But what seems remarkable here is the messaging and the imagery of this ad versus the reality of where the country finds itself today. High levels of unemployment, real sense of precarity in people's lives. People are not celebrating climbing mountains, waving the Canadian flag. Instead, they're wondering, where's my next paycheck coming from and how am I going to pay my grocery bill? And just to layer on top of that, the seeming discontinuity between this ad and where the Carney government is at now. This ad seems almost like a flashback to the election, to that elbows up moment. And yet here we are, 6 or so months later, we're talking about building pipelines into the United States, golden domes with the golden president, how much things have changed on the political front, yet it seems Ottawa is committed, dedicated to pushing out these kinds of narratives of a patriotic, prideful, boastful, happy country. What explains this kind of jarring difference between the manufactured world of how Ottawa sees Canada versus the reality of the country today, politically and otherwise?
I just think it's easy for the government to put out something like this, right? It's harder to actually do the work. Like you said, we don't have time to be, dancing around with maple leaves in our hair in some sort of grove. We have like real issues we're confronted with, whether they be international or here domestically. This is all these ads are made for a domestic audience, obviously, right? And you get tones of this elbows up mantra that we heard during the campaign, almost uncomfortably close to like what you heard from the Liberal Party during the election. And as you said, they blanketed multiple departments, Canadian heritage, science and innovation, words like, and strange language we can get into. Tell me what this means, Roger. Be your most flag flying, maple leaf buying, local adventuring self.
There is a rallying cry for a country. That is something we should
We'll die for.
Our new coat of arms should have that as its motto: local adventuring self. I can only imagine the focus group and the firms that were paid to come up with that particular ordering of words that just so beautifully captures the national character and national identity.
Roger, how about the YouTube video, the karaoke version of "O Canada" that the government created so that you could join arms with your friends over a Canadian lager and sing with the words, why you need the words. I thought you're supposed to be patriotic. I don't understand. But, the 81 view YouTube video that is available to citizens, at what cost, we don't know. How much does all of this cost? We'll be looking into it because it certainly was in the millions.
Yeah. Again, the seeming gap here between the type of imagery and the messaging, which, as one of our younger producers here, I thought accurately pointed out, kind of almost harkens back to the Vancouver Olympics, to the I Am Canadian ad, it's interestingly kind of retrograde. It doesn't, in fact, I think, capture, for better or worse, the state of the Canadian nation today. It seems so obviously propaganda in a kind of clumsy fashion. It is just these expected images. Of course you have Terry Fox in there. Of course you have a soldier, from one of the great wars, not that we have an army.
There's all these boxes that have to be ticked. Obviously.
Exactly. You go through the list, and I wonder what it says, Harrison, just about officialdom in Ottawa and this idea of a kind of synthetic culture that we seem trapped in, a culture that, if Ottawa would have its way, is, again, happy, cheery, filled with national symbols and flags and people dancing in the street. Does that suggest that maybe Ottawa doesn't understand our culture anymore, or simply doesn't care? Is, I would say, cynically engaged in propaganda, engaged in manufacturing images, manufacturing narratives that are probably more closely aligned, aren't they, Harrison, to a political objective, and I might even say a political party?
It feels like we're stuck in the 60s or something. We got this with the Mike Meyer ads that Carney did, right? Maybe you could ask the question, we're forced to do this because maybe, has Canada done anything good lately? Like, we're not able to pull from something amazing we've done in the last few years. I think a lot of conservatives would say, in some ways, like, welcome to the party, Canadians who lean left. We've been trying to preserve and promote Canadian identity for the last few years. You've been telling us that, we should feel shameful and guilt-ridden and we should lower the flag for almost half a year. And now, same party in power, and yet we should be our most flag-flying selves. Like this, it rings pretty
I think it's local adventuring selves, which is, again, whatever that is. I guess it could be an interesting acronym for some state of Canadian being. As we wrap this conversation up, Harrison, what is the role of government when it comes to talking to Canadians about Canada? I guess I have a somewhat kind of nostalgic view, maybe, that government should kind of not do this. Basically, government should be doing things that are mission critical, i.e. having maybe an army, having hospitals that work, furnishing an education system, that meets the country's needs. And to see instead this kind of studious, because clearly, I mean, there are, as you say, entire federal departments that are pushing this campaign out. It is all over my podcast feed, this ad. It is, I presume, possibly, I don't know, we'll try to find out, but maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe $1 million or more of advertising spend behind this to push this kind of pablum out on the country. I don't know what should Ottawa be doing when it talks to Canadians? Is there a different calibration that would be, I don't know, more mature, more treating people as if they were actually intelligent and not likely to be bamboozled by this kind of, rank symbolism?
I like to feel warm and fuzzy on the inside as much as the next guy, right? And we're both patriots and nationalists, but I just feel like it needs to be attached to some substance. To harken back to something you said early on, it would be great if these were attached to projects. We're great because we're going to get this pipeline built in the next few years. We're great because these icebreakers will be built and will be surveying and protecting Canada's northern waters in the next few months. Like actual tangible results that give us reason to be optimistic about the future, not just celebrating the past. That's what I would say.
Yeah, if anyone's listening, pro tip, take a trip to the Isaac Brock Memorial on the Niagara Peninsula, a key place that, commemorates our victory over the Americans in the War of 1812. I went there last year. It's a National Heritage Site. It's dilapidated. It's run down. It's second rate. I would say if you want to start somewhere, start with our physical history. Take a site like Brock's Monument and turn that into a genuine place of national pride that shows the extent to which you care about history by actually caring about history and not caring about a series of images that seemed, again, to be more aligned with the political messages of a political party, in this case, the government of Mark Carney, who is still pretty keen on selling Canadians on a kind of, I don't know what you call it, patriotism, LITE, vis-a-vis the Americans and the Trump administration. I'd say let's start there. Let's start with our actual past and turn it into something that actually reflects our pride for that shared history. Let me give you the last word.
Yeah, I just think that we should be focused on results and tangible things, that monument being one thing, right? I've also seen many monuments that are in a state of horrible disrepair, and I would have liked to seen the money spent on that as opposed to flashing images of Indigenous folk, soldiers, and the like, beaming that clockwork orange like into my open eyes for the next few months. Let's put the money elsewhere, maybe.
Yeah, let's put the money elsewhere. Let's just get the government out of this type of communication. We're all way more sophisticated than this, and I think we see through it for what it is, which is primarily state propaganda. Harrison Lohman, managing editor of The Hub, host of our popular podcast, Full Press, on the media, covering the beat. We appreciate having you here in the studio.
Thanks for having me on.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening.
So, yeah, it's a pretty good channel I stumbled across there. These guys are right on top of things, except there's one thing I just didn't really think they got right. It's a minor detail, but when they talked about the War of 1812 and Canada winning the war, Canada wasn't a country then. It wasn't until 1867, so it was actually Britain. It was a bit of a skirmish, but anyways, we can take, I guess, credit for it somehow. So, yeah. And everything else they said, I think was bang on. It's propaganda, folks. That's all it is coming out of this government. Like, you always want to get a little bit of propaganda out of every government, but I'll tell you, the Liberal, they think they're masters at it, but it's only their followers that suck it up. They think it's just great. They're doing a great job, and I'm glad that that other bunch isn't in. Now I know people are going to say there's no difference between the two, but I see some difference, and I don't like to give up hope. So, anyways, I see Pierre just put out a video. I watched it earlier. Moose had it on there too about Pierre at the media gala event, whatever it was. He showed up unexpected, caught them off guard. So, and he really went at them. So, how has our government been doing? I'm going to go over this quickly, very quickly, and then I've got some things here that's be interesting to Americans and Canadians, both, because we're both wrapped up and caught up in this mess. But first, see how we're doing here. I'll show you what I'm looking at. This is the United Nations, the 17 goals. Remember that, the ESG? And, well, here they are. And how are we doing? Okay. The first one is no poverty. Get off there. First one's no poverty. Well, there's more poverty in this country right now than there has ever been. So they're not doing very good at that. The UN might think they're doing great, because that's kind of what they're shooting for, right? Okay, and zero hunger. Huge lineups at the food bank. Massive lineups, growing daily because of the poverty. They go hand in hand. So, no, that's a failure, but it's a success according to the UN. Good health and well-being, number 3. Well, our medical system is tanked due to overcrowding with immigrants, illegal asylum seekers, illegal fake refugees. So, no, that's not good either. Quality education. Well, let's see. They got SOGI and they're teaching gender dysphoria, gender identity, and all that crap. So, no, I'd say that's a failure. Gender equality. I don't know how to describe that one. I would say that as for male and females, men and women, I'd say we're about as equal as we can be. And I'm going to leave it at that because there's only 2 genders. So I'd say that's a failure. Well, that's actually not a success if you stick to 2 genders. If you go out of the 2 genders, it's a failure. Clean water and sanitation. I'm going to come back to that one. Number 7, affordable and clean energy. Power bills are going through the roof. There's nothing affordable about our power bills. And that's right across the country. I know it's provincial, but you know what? The pain is created by the federal government, so that's a failure. Decent work and economic growth. Our economy is tanking and there's no jobs. People are poor. Just go back to number 1, poverty. Number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Well, they're not doing any of that. They claim they're going to, but no. It's all smoke and mirrors. I think Danielle Smith stepped into a trap there with Carney, but we're going to lose the West. Number 10, equal or reduced inequalities. No, that's wrong too, because newcomers have more benefits and chances to get ahead than the old school Canadians. I know liberals hate that, especially Trudeau, old school. Well, that's what we are. Number 11, sustainable cities and communities. Not yet, but they're working on the 15-minute cities, and then they'll be sustainable. Responsible consumption and production. We're not producing anything. So if we're not producing, we're not consuming. I think people are patching everything up to try to get by. Climate action. I hate that. I hate it because it's all smoke and mirrors. Life below water, well, we can't really see there, so I can't really make a comment on that. Life on land. It's not good for us. We'll see how that one plays out. They might get 1 or 2 here, but that would be it. Peace, justice, and strong institutions. Failure. Look at the Freedom Convoy. Look at the ostriches. People are split into groups fighting each other. And that's the Canadians. The other immigrants and refugees, fake refugees and fake asylum seekers are right in the middle just laughing at us. And the government's keeping us fighting with each other. Partnerships for the goals. Back to the water. Clean water and sanitation. Well, the way I look at that, all you got to do is look up. Look up at the sky. Look at the planes with those nice long white tails coming out behind them from horizon to horizon, spreading out, giving us a beautiful white sky, covering all the blue, all falling down onto the ground for the rain and the snow to push those chemicals down into the aquifers underneath. And then it can be pumped back up into your home. That's how I see the clean water. Not so clean. So the UN SDGs is just a farce. We knew that from way back. But I just thought I'd refresh those SDGs because I haven't talked about them for a long time. So now I want to do some more quick little videos because I've been looking at these. Now's a good chance to bring them up. Let's take a minute to load. I hope. There they come. Okay. So the guy I was talking to, what he said about Trump. Okay. He said, he's just going after the oil in Venezuela. I didn't reply. I just looked at him and said, all right, whatever. I couldn't talk to him. I knew that. He knows it all. I was going to ask him about the little island off of Venezuela where they're training Hamas and, let's see, trying to think of a few of the other groups, but, you know, the ones I'm getting at, Hezbollah, and there's just so many of them. Anyways, it's a training ground. Of course, he would never believe that. And I also would have liked to ask him if he's ever been to Venezuela or ever met anybody from Venezuela. Now I know the answer would have been no, and I would say, well, I have. I've never been there, but I know people from there, and they just get out of there just in the nick of time because it was going through the fall. And hey. But hey, no, it's all about oil. A lot of issues down there in Venezuela. I heard Maduro is trying to bail out. Now, this one here, I'm going to kill the volume on it because you don't need that up. This is a Venezuelan propaganda video. See if you can see. Watch closely at this video. It's only 31 seconds long. And see if you can see anything looks a little fishy. Okay, so let's take a look here. I'm probably going to play this a couple of times. I want to see if you can pick it out. Yeah, it's at a dinner table here, of course, right? See anything yet? See anything? Anything there? Right. Take a good look. Right. She doesn't look very impressed. Looks like a hostage video, doesn't it? Blink twice. You notice that? You see what's up? Okay, I'm going to take it back to the start and I'm going to show you a couple of things. See that? See what she just did? She just brushed her fork on that. She did that for a reason. Right? Like she was pretending to eat. Look at this. What's she doing? She's looking at her sister. See, she just rubbed her fork on her food. It's all plastic. It's not real food. They're faking it. And it's too perfect. It's all too perfect. When he picks us up, look at that. That's all fake. That's what communist countries are like. Did I screw up? I did, didn't I? Okay, I'm sorry. Watch it again. Now you know what the fakeness is. Watch the girl, how she rubs her fork on it like she's going to eat something. Right? There's nothing there. Didn't even mark it. Same here. She's marking that salad. There's no mark on it. It didn't move. Nothing moved. He's holding it up. Everything's perfect. See how she's looking? That's like a hostage video, right? That's Venezuela. Sorry, I missed to switch screens here. So, Buddy's never been there, but he thinks this. Oh no, Trump's an awful guy, but they're good in Venezuela. They're not starving. They probably picked the healthiest family they could find, hey? So now, I hope you didn't just have a meal, because we're going to look at some stuff here that's going on. And you've probably seen some of this, and probably some of it you haven't seen. So I bet you in Venezuela, they'd probably even be happy to have this stuff. So this is their 3D printed meat cuts. They look like a steak.
Can you believe it? This piece of meat was actually printed in 3D. It looks, feels, and even tastes like real beef. An Israeli tech company made this amazing discovery, and the process is as fascinating as the result. They start by taking stem cells from a cow and growing them in a lab. These cells are fed a special nutrient solution, which helps them multiply quickly. Once there are enough cells, they're ready to be 3D printed. The cool part? A computer controls everything, even the shape of the meat and how much fat and muscle it has. The engineers have already printed a steak. While it's not ready to eat yet, it's alive in a way. Under a microscope, you can see tiny muscle fibers moving. In just about a month, this lab-grown steak could be cooked and served on your dinner table. Normally, it takes years to produce expensive and rare Wagyu beef, but with this 3D printing technology, the process only takes a few minutes. When it's fully prepared and served, you wouldn't even notice the difference between this synthetic and the real meat. However, at the moment, this technology is still extremely expensive, so it's not something you'll see in stores anytime soon. But what about you? Would you try it?
A hard pass on that. So that's just pardon the pun, a taste of what I got to bring up here. I'm not sure what's going on in this next one, but it's pretty bizarre. Hang on, sorry about that. The volume's going up on me. Wow. Try it there. These are little chicks, and I'm not sure what they're doing with them, but they're forcing something into them. So these are just recently hatched, it looks like, and it could be Mr. NA, you know what I mean? Some things I really shouldn't say on here, so I'll just call him Mr. NA. I think you'll catch the drift of what I'm saying. This here is bread. I don't know, maybe it's for school lunches. It's bioengineered, of course. So
Pour in buckets of clear base liquid and
man, that volume is crazy on these. So this is the new bread. Probably at your delis for your sandwiches, pre-made sandwiches maybe.
you think the toast on your breakfast table is made from flour and eggs. Nope. In this story, it's something that might have never even seen real flour. Just a bunch of chemicals mixed together in a factory, like it's a science experiment. It's 4 in the morning. The lights in the workshop snap on. There's no flour being hauled around. No dough mixer roaring in the background. What the workers actually do first is dump bags of white powder into a giant mixing tank, then pour in buckets of clear base liquid. And no, that white powder isn't flour. It's thickeners, foam agents, stabilizers, artificial flavors, the whole chemistry set. Then someone twists a valve, and in goes a milky aroma blend. The moment it hits the tank, that familiar milky bakery smell fills the entire place, like hundreds of toasts are baking at once. But here's the twist. There isn't a single oven in the whole facility. Once everything's mixed into a sticky batter, they slowly pump it into metal molds. A few minutes of high heat and pressure later, the thin liquid puffs up, takes shape, and turns golden and fluffy on the outside, looking almost exactly like real bread. To make it even more convincing, workers brush on a shiny fake butter coating so it smells toasty and looks freshly baked. Then it gets shipped out to supermarkets, convenience stores, breakfast shops, pretty much anywhere people grab their morning toast. And the craziest part, the cost of one whole loaf is basically nothing, not even 30 cents.
Better start making your own bread coming up. I think we're pretty good right now on that, but you just don't know what they're slipping in, right? Lynn, Campbell's fake chicken in the soup. I think I might have that video on here, that conversation that was recorded. Now, it's getting weirder and grosser too. Let's give me a heads up here. Save that one for later. I don't know if anybody's heard of HEK 293. We're going to go into this HEK 293. Once I get this figured out here. Gotta stay on top of that volume. They're all cranked to the max. Okay, this is a 2-minute video. It's on HEK 293. Get it up there so you can see it.
What if I told you that every time you consume natural flavourings, you could be eating something developed by human fetal cells? Yes, you heard that right. Did you know that some of the biggest food companies, Pepsi, Nestle and Kraft, have used a biotech company called Synomics to create flavour enhancers? But here's the disturbing part. These artificial flavours were originally tested using HEK 293, a cell line derived from aborted fetal tissue. And because of legal loopholes, they don't have to tell you. Let me repeat that. Natural flavours don't necessarily mean they come from nature. They can be chemically engineered in a lab using biotech derived from human cells. Here's how it works. The food industry knows that processed food loses its flavour, so instead of using real ingredients, they bring in biotech companies to develop flavour enhancers. Sonomics found that HEK293 cells, originally from fetal tissue, react to flavours like human taste buds. By testing these flavours on cells, they could
Oops, maybe YouTube got me on this one.
created additives that made processed food better, addicting millions of people worldwide. And then these chemical compounds were rebranded as natural flavours. Here's why it matters. The food industry is one giant deceptive machine. They use loopholes to keep consumers in the dark. Today, even natural flavours can contain over 100 synthetic compounds, developed using biotech processes we're not told about. It's about profit, not health, and we're the experiment. If they've hidden this from us for decades, what else are they hiding? It's time to wake up, check your labels, and demand transparency. Stop trusting the food giants that profit from deception, because if they can manipulate what we eat, they can manipulate how we think and even how we feel. The truth is out. Have you been fooled by natural flavours? Let me know in the comments. Let's expose this together and share this video with people that care about what they eat. Knowledge is power, and together the right education will set us free. What have I told you that
Well, I'll tell you, I'm looking at labels more and more now. And I looked at my Ritz crackers, and it all looked pretty good until I got to the bottom line that said, including natural flavors. Ugh. So I don't think I'm gonna be eating any more of those. It's getting crazier, folks. It's getting crazier. Let's see. Okay, let's bring this guy here up. This is a bioethicist. Wow.
Give two examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then they would it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, you know, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy. I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So, you know, but so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance. And some people are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you will become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of possibly address really big world problems through human engineering.
Remember Bill Gates said, if we do really good with the shots, we can cut the population down. So anyways, yeah, the Lone Star tick, I'm sure they could, it's like Lyme's disease. Lone Star now, it's not like Lyme's, but it's carried by a tick, so they're even in Atlantic Canada now, Southern Ontario. And I just seen a guy from the UN said that 20% of climate change is caused just from people eating meat, as they have their big prime rib dinner. So his peons better stop eating it. What else have I got here? I got another bioengineered one. And it is another short one. And this is, I'm not sure what this guy is. He looks like a, well, he's an MD. So, let's see what he's saying here. Get this volume down.
Buy some Bill Gates biological beans? Well, it turns out it looks like they're coming. I just got a report that Bill Gates has donated $50 million to a new company called Tarana Biosciences, and they're going to create a new category of biologically modified crops. One of their first targets is soybeans, but you won't know that you're buying a modified soybean from this Bill Gates technology because our EPA has said that it is, quote, naturally occurring compounds and is not GMO. What am I talking about? It's taking RNA from a virus and using it to insert whatever gene they want into whatever crop they want. Once the RNA is inside the plant, it replicates and it gives it different features, and the company brags that they can create whatever feature they want. One of their targets is to make it more insect resistant. So you're going to put insecticides within the food. They're targeting tomatoes, corn, and soybeans first. It will not be labeled as modified and it will not be labeled as GMO. But Bill Gates is betting on making profit by genetically modifying our food without telling us. Our EPA has already given it the green light. Buy some.
So, old Billy, you can't trust Billy. When you don't hear anything from him, he's cooking something up. Pardon the pun. Oh, Billy. Now this one here, this lady here, this is only 44 seconds long, but it is another good watch. Everybody's going to stop eating after watching this. Wait till you see the last one.
Okay, guys, I had to stop what I was doing to share this with you guys because this is crazy. Right now, the state of Oregon is shutting down small family farms en masse under the guise of water conservation. Oregon lawmakers are rewording their laws to effectively treat small local farms the same as like a large farming operation on a commercial scale. And let me tell you the scariest part, because I've talked about this on my page before. The way they are finding these farms is they are using satellite imagery to pinpoint your farm and send you a cease and desist letter and insisting that you stop all production. Their government has also set up a hotline so that your neighbors can call and rat on you for watering the vegetables and fruits that you're going to go sell at the farmer's market next week. Okay, guys.
Good old rat line, eh? You got liberal neighbors. You better hide your garden from them. Now this one here, I'm starting to forget. There's so many of them, but they're quick. It's another 1 minute one.
And I'm not talking because of supply chain issues. You'll see the product there, and then all of a sudden it's gone for a couple of months, and then it just miraculously reappears. Well, I think I know why. So I started noticing that a lot of products that were here started disappearing off the shelves and coming back with new ingredients. So a lot of the cookies and other products like that I enjoyed were just normal for the longest time, and they'd be off the shelves for a couple of months, regardless of the supply chain situation. And then when they came back on the shelves, they were changed to containing a bioengineered food ingredient. I've seen this happen on many, many items just in the last couple of months. So more than likely, if you're at a grocery store and you used to be able to get a product, it's not there, and then all of a sudden it comes back, it's because they're changing the ingredients to bioengineered food ingredients. So if
So that's kind of a good heads up there. Keep an eye and start reading those labels, right? Just because you read them now and they're all look good, it might be a good idea just to keep on them, keep checking them. It seems to be hitting the U.S. a lot harder first. Maybe because of the bigger population. I don't know. It's not because of the government stopping it here, that's for sure. So, there's another one here. It's 3 minutes long. Bring this little gal up here.
I'm actually really glad that you asked this question. Bioengineered food is food that contains genetic material that has been modified through certain laboratory techniques for which the modification could not be obtained through conventional breeding or found in nature. And then actually, January 2022, changes went into effect, and that's probably why you're seeing it on a label now, whereas maybe you didn't see it before. But they're having their new requirements that are going on, which seems cool, right? But then if you look deeper into it, they're allowed to put this QR code on here instead of putting on there made with genetically modified ingredients. So unless you're actively looking for things like this, unless you're looking the whole packaging over and then go and scan this, that's how you're going to find out that it has genetically modified ingredients on some packaging, not all. Now, if you look here, frequently asked questions, what foods require a bioengineered food disclosure? Highly refined ingredients like some sugars and oils, and foods that are primarily meat, poultry, or egg products do not require a bioengineered food disclosure. That's interesting. This is a current list of genetically modified crops. Okay, and I think this part is really interesting also. Talking about corn, most GMO corn is created to resist insect, pests, or to tolerate herbicides. Produces a protein that is toxic to certain insects, pests, but not to humans, pets, or livestock or other animals.
Huh.
These are the same types of proteins that organic farmers use to control insects, pests. They do not harm other beneficial insects such as ladybugs. So your organic produce right here, the FDA.gov is telling you that your organic produce is grown and genetically modified so that they don't have to spray pesticides on it. How is that organic? The labeling, you have to watch out for the labeling. They gotta get you somewhere. And then soybeans, most soy grown in the United States is GMO soy. Almost every single thing that you buy that's soybean is genetically modified, but then you don't even realize what they're putting it in.
Organic, eh? Right. Not so organic. Hey, where'd you go? Fred, is that real behind you? Is anything real now, Faye? And let's get away from the bioengineered stuff for a minute. And let's go to the real stuff, the lab grown goodies. Okay. Show you some of that. Bring it up. Here we go.
3 shocking lab-grown foods that are becoming extremely popular. First, synthetic beef. It is made by growing animal cells in a lab instead of raising animals. It tastes like regular meat, but without the animal part. Next, milk, also called cultured milk. It is produced without cows or other animals. It has the same ingredients as animal milk, but is created using an emerging biotechnology technique called precision fermentation. It promises the same taste, looks, and feel as regular dairy milk. Finally, seafood. This lab-grown seafood is produced by growing cells from fish or other sea animals. 3 shocking lab-grown foods that are becoming
So what this is coming down to is you have to find your local farmer and buy there, so you know exactly what you're getting. How about ice cream? Does anybody like ice cream? You might not after this. Go to there with the volume. Good thing it's winter. Won't be eating much ice cream.
Rumor has it that the ice cream in these ice cream sandwiches doesn't melt, so we're going to take these home and test it. Okay, we just got home. I put one of the ice cream sandwiches on a plate. I'm going to show you what time it is on the clock. It is 6:48 p.m. We're going to see how long it takes for this thing to melt. We just got home from dinner. It is 10:33 p.m. and this has been sitting out since we left earlier. How gross that is. That has not melted at all. It's the next morning. I left this out.
A little buffer in here, eh? I'm trying to discourage us from watching this. Come on now, it's only TikTok. Maybe I can start it, get kick started here.
Morning. I left this out.
Good. Okay, that's strange. Anyways, she left it out overnight and it still didn't melt. And I forget what they say is in it. There it is there. Oh, okay. Says there didn't melt. Most likely didn't melt because of the artificial trans fats. Also contains bioengineered food ingredients. Also GMOs. So you got GMOs, you got the artificial engineered food ingredients and the artificial trans fats. So if you want to eat ice cream, you might become a label reader. This one here is kind of scary. They all are, but this one is, I would say this is kind of like a Bill Gates type of thing. This is coming. It might even be here right now. Like I say, the future is now.
Medicago's manufacturing facility looks like a nursery, but inside these plants, they're growing a new kind of vaccine. The technology is called a virus-like particle.
At Medicago, we use a careful step-by-step process to develop vaccines, using our plants as mini bioreactors. We start with the gene sequence, or code, of a virus. We then use our technology to synthesize the virus code into a real biological product. The code contains genetic instructions that our plants can read, and we insert it into bacteria, called Agrobacterium tumefaciens. We submerge the plants in a bath with the bacteria that carries the information into the plant cells. And using a vacuum, we suck out the air between the plant cells and replace it with the liquid. The plants absorb it like a sponge. At the end of their bacterial bath, we return our plants to a carefully controlled greenhouse to let them get on with their natural growing business for at least 4 days. Now the plants will start producing the most important ingredient of our vaccines, virus-like particles.
You're gonna get us. They're working out to get us, I'm telling you. In Canada, in the wintertime, it's hothouse tomatoes, hothouse cucumbers, and we have no idea what's in these hothouses. I got another shorty here. This is American. It's Aldi. Some of you might have seen this. Turn it on here. 1 minute video.
They say Aldi fresh, but their salads contain bioengineered food ingredients. Their bagels contain bioengineered food ingredients. Not so fresh. No artificial flavors, but it contains bioengineered food ingredients. Even the granola bars or fruit bars contains bioengineered food ingredients.
Made in Canada.
They say Aldi fresh, but their salads contain bioengineered food ingredients.
Yeah, that last item was made in Canada, so we're shipping them down to the USA. So, okay.
Stop
it. This one here is a little longer. This is going to get you. I saved the best or the worst for last. Depends how you look at it. And this is a little in depth. It is, we'll finish it off with this one. It's 16 minutes long. And I found it disturbing, and I'm sure you will too.
Hey Internet friends, in previous videos we've covered who Bill Gates was before Microsoft, who Bill Gates was after Microsoft, and what it means to give eugenics.
Hang on, I just seen I'm still on there. Did it again. Okay, let's start it.
Hey Internet friends, in previous videos we've covered who Bill Gates was before Microsoft, who Bill Gates was after Microsoft, and what it means to give eugenics a hot rebrand as population control. But today we're going to go in a different direction because Bill Gates is just one guy. Today we're going to look at the money and power behind Bill and discuss some companies and individuals that might not be household names, but they manage the names you know in your household. So let's take a closer look at one faction of what the children these days are calling the deep state. The history of the most popular coffee chain in the world began in 1971 in Seattle, Washington, which originally started off as a store that exclusively sold coffee beans. A decade later, Howard Schultz was hired as the marketing and sales director, and he quickly turned the coffee bean shop into a cafe. with his strategy being aggressive expansion as the years went on. But in the 1980s, Starbucks had gotten into financial trouble because the original founders had acquired a company called Peet's Coffee. The owner of Starbucks approached Schultz, relaying his intention to keep Peet's. Schultz was then offered ownership of Starbucks for $3.8 million if he could come up with the funds from private investors within 60 days. Schultz claimed that he had no money, and by the end of the month, he'd barely raised half, only to have the same Starbucks owner approach him saying that he'd received an unsolicited offer on the table for $4 million from a Titan investor. And if Schultz couldn't raise the money by the end of the month, he'd have to accept the offer. In Schultz's retelling of this story, he relayed these events to his attorney friend, and his attorney friend responded by telling Schultz to come into the office and speak with the senior partner at the firm, who just so happened to be William Gates Sr., the father of Microsoft's Bill Gates. You know, Gates Sr., the attorney who sat on the board of Planned Parenthood before the days of Roe versus Wade. Gates Sr., who married Mary Maxwell, the banker's daughter and the granddaughter of the president of Seattle's Federal Reserve Bank. Yeah, Gates Sr. standing proud at 6 feet 7 inches tall. We're all familiar by this point. So Gates Sr. caught wind of this transaction and advised Schultz to take a walk with him. And they walked down to the unnamed rival buyer's office, where Gates Sr. gave the investor a verbal lashing, saying, "You should be ashamed of yourself. Stand down. This Schultz kid is gonna realize his dream." And then Gates turned to Schultz and instructed him to buy Starbucks. And not to worry, he and Bill Gates Jr. were gonna help him. What a beautiful story, right? It's got everything you could possibly want. Piping hot coffee, the rise of the underdog, and of course, a wise older gentleman looking out for the dreams of a young man. Yeah, sure, it's the same fella who championed the early extermination of many potential dreams through Planned Parenthood, but we won't dwell on that because Gates Sr. made this one American dream come to fruition. Such inspiration. Truly achievable to anyone willing to put in the hard work. And of course, willing to accept a sweetheart deal and work around the quiet shadow ownership of a company. If there's anything Starbucks has been successful at, it's cornering a demographic by selling the cafe experience with the Starbucks cup as a status symbol, with the actual Starbucks logo being what most people think is a twin-tailed mermaid that Starbucks refers to as a siren. But it's actually a hybrid creature, her upper half being a human female and lower half being two fishtails, or two serpent tails. The coffee in that cup comes at an objectively high price. And one might assume that high prices equate to high quality, or at least real ingredients. But when you break down the composition of Starbucks drinks and baked offerings, what you're left with is GMOs, pesticides, high fructose corn syrup, and traces of growth hormones throughout, all of which are linked to chronic disease and fertility issues. Even the milk is GMO, from cows that are fed a diet of GMO corn. And that corn is sprayed with pesticides like Monsanto's Roundup. If you've ever sprayed Roundup in your yard, you know from experience that it kills everything it comes into contact with. So what does it mean to ingest it on the daily? So Starbucks' priority should be to get away from the GMO Monsanto ingredients, right? Well, let's follow the money and demonstrate why they can't. The breakdown of Starbucks ingredients might just be an accent point on the story, but it's actually a really big deal, since we can draw a distinct line between the Schultz-Gates Starbucks sweetheart deal and the company that controls a majority of the world's food supply. Monsanto originally began as a chemical company, eventually evolving into a pharmaceutical company, then partnered with the military to give us Agent Orange, the insecticide DDT, PCBs, and artificial growth hormones, which have done nothing but leave a trail of destruction in their wake. Monsanto has had to pay out millions upon millions of dollars to settle lawsuits because of the harmful effects of their chemicals. So they eventually shifted their focus to agriculture, and guess what? Now they control our food supply. And they were able to stay true to their roots by introducing chemicals and genetic modification to crops. If we follow the trail of money from the origin of Starbucks, the breakdown of Starbucks ingredients leading us to Monsanto, we arrive at 2009. when the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation purchased 500,000 Monsanto shares. Or at least that's what was published and documented in that fiscal year. In other words, that's an investment we know about. Bill simultaneously bought a huge amount of shares in Cargill, a faceless agri-giant that rules over the world's food commodities. And by doing this, he effectively has a huge financial stake in the world's food supply, and that supply is controlled by companies with less than pristine reputations. And that's putting it lightly. Later, Bill Gates invested millions and millions of dollars in plant-based meat alternative companies like Beyond Meat and the Impossible Burger, sold across upscale restaurants, supermarkets, and even fast food places like Burger King, Carl's Jr., and now Starbucks. The CEO of Impossible Foods is Patrick Brown, a Stanford biochemistry professor specializing in DNA research, whose father worked for the Central Intelligence Agency. While marketing professionals will engineer campaigns to paint these plant-based meats as healthy alternatives, it's proven and documented that these burgers use GMO soy and vegetable sprays with Monsanto Roundup. Recently, Monsanto was acquired by Bayer for $66 billion. Bayer is a German pharmaceutical company that was part of the IG Farben conglomerate back in the Third Reich, and was convicted by the American military of taking advantage of the absence of legal and ethical constraints on medical experimentation to test its drugs on unwilling human subjects during World War II. You'd think that Bayer would have learned their lesson and maybe tried to behave, a little more ethically over the decades, but no. They have just as many scandals and lawsuits as Monsanto, like recently, when Bayer Laboratories realized their blood products were contaminated with HIV and decided that their financial investment in these products was too high to toss out all their vials of blood in a fiery dumpster. So they sold their HIV-tainted products to South America and Asia without the courtesy of a warning. Yes, this is the company that controls our pharmaceuticals and food supply. Aren't we all thrilled? No wonder Bill Gates is making it rain on these companies. They're literally the MVPs of his and his family's passion: population control. Back in the 80s, Bill Gates Sr., an attorney who sat on the board of Planned Parenthood before anyone even knew what Planned Parenthood was, and his son, the Microsoft co-founder and great-grandson of the Federal Reserve, played a key role in Howard Schultz's Starbucks empire. In the early 2000s, after a stint of bad publicity within the media for his legal trouble, Bill Gates established the Gates Foundation for his philanthropic endeavors, and has since killed a number of children and adults in India and Africa, leaving many paralyzed with his experimental pharmaceutical trials and vaccinations. During this time, not only has Bill Gates stated an explicit interest in population control, but he's also invested in pharmaceutical and agricultural giants like Monsanto, who have a notorious reputation for the outright disregard of human life. Not only that, but meaningful amounts of Monsanto chemicals can be found in Bill Gates' investments like Starbucks drinks and baked goods, Beyond Meat products, and Impossible Foods burgers. These chemicals have been proven to cause cancer and infertility. Sounds like some master plan laid out by one of the world's greatest boogeymen. But Bill Gates is just one guy. Who is really the driving force behind him? Who is the real financial powerhouse behind all of these companies? Who is the man behind the curtain? Well, I won't keep you waiting. If you follow the money, you arrive at one place. Bain & Company. Bain & Company was founded in 1973 by former bigwigs at the Boston Consulting Group. And those bigwigs and their families now own sports teams like the Boston Celtics, New England Patriots, and the Boston Red Sox. Multi-billionaires who sit on the board of the Federal Reserve. Bain & Company is one of the big three elite management consulting firms, who has been notoriously secretive about itself and its work for clients, earning it the title of the KGB of consulting over the years. You might have heard of Bain & Company during Mitt Romney's run for presidency, The two most famous people out of Bain are Dick Cheney and Mitt Romney. Of course, Dick Cheney was vice president under the Bush administration, and Mitt Romney almost became president. Mitt Romney himself started off at Boston Consulting Group, where he worked alongside none other than Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Eventually, Mitt Romney went on to work for Bain, where he quickly rose up the ranks, becoming one of the company's vice presidents by the late 70s, heading Bain's venture capital arm called Bain Capital. You might not ever guess this, but the wholesome Mormon Mitt Romney was there through it all, quite literally shaping the culture and realities of the United States and countries around the world through Bain Company. While Bain functions as a private equity firm, I think we can quite confidently say that Bain Company is a U.S. intelligence front and military-industrial company, since some of the most famous people out of Bain are high-level government officials. And Bain's most famous clients were, and are, Halliburton, Raytheon, Monsanto, Microsoft, Starbucks, and even the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Bain manages a great portion of the Fortune 500 companies. That's why their stocks do so well. And while Bain says they're a consulting firm, their pattern is one of a buyout firm that comes in, takes over, and quietly leaves the shell intact while they place their own people in positions of power within a company. You might be surprised to hear that Bain manages Ryan Seacrest, the guy who is responsible for the reality TV show Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And we can effectively say that the wholesome Mormon Mitt Romney was the guy who put the transsexual agenda on television through the Bruce Caitlyn Jenner saga. So when Kanye West gets mouthy and is hauled off on a stretcher and put in timeout for a few days, only to return looking like a Marshall Mathers wannabe clone, that's all Bain Company. When you see Bill Gates doing an Ask Me Anything question and answer session on Reddit or posted up on the 6 o'clock news, labeled as a pandemic expert and talking about mandatory vaccinations, keeping everyone inside for the foreseeable future and grinning with glee, that's Bain Company. When you're nibbling on your plant-based name-brand fast food burger and get a mouthful of delicious Monsanto Roundup, that's Bain Company. When you take a swig of your mocha frappa latte only to get inundated with a myriad of social agendas flying out of Starbucks headquarters, you guessed it, that's Bain Company. And if you're already a liberal anyway and you enjoy such agendas and a piping hot cup of coffee from Starbucks, remember, your worldview is being socially engineered by the work of Republican candidate for president, wholesome Mormon governor and sitting senator Mitt Romney, and a bunch of crusty old fellas who've been with Bush Sr. since the days of Skull and Bones. So we followed the money, but where did we arrive? Well, in this video, we arrived at one tiny centralized little group, all owned and operated either by Skull and Bones CIA Financial Investment and Management Arm, otherwise known as Bain, or it's owned and operated by Mossad, Carlyle, or BlackRock. This group has unlimited money and power to take over companies and industries they deem crucial. And these folks have unlimited money because they're literally sitting on the board of the Federal Reserve. Which brings us to Bill Gates' family legacy, eugenics. Now rebranded as population control with Planned Parenthood on his father's side and the Federal Reserve Bank on the other. Everything Bill Gates has ever touched, from Microsoft to Starbucks to Bayer Monsanto, vaccine makers and plant-based burgers, it was all managed by Bain & Company. They're the ones who put Microsoft computers at every desk in every office, in every government building, in the computer lab of every school. And these computers and programs have the backdoor access for spying. This is your deep state, or at least a faction of it. What do you think, internet friends? You know, I always look forward to your comments. As always, you can find the full source list to this video pinned as the top comment under the YouTube video. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, and supporting my channel on Patreon. Bye!
I don't know how many strikes I'm going to get on this live stream. If I'm not on next week, you're going to have to catch me on Rumble on the Great Lake North. But the truth's got to come out, right? And I'm probably ruined a lot of people's appetites, I would imagine. I'm sure everybody's going to be looking at labels from here on in. Phil, I think you said earlier that Campbell Soup in Canada doesn't have bioengineered ingredients on the label. They don't have it on the label in Canada. Does that mean it's not in there? I don't know. But that was an American leak. But what I did see on this, I don't use Facebook really. But anyways, I get a notification that picks my attention. I'll go look at it. And I seen at the grocery stores in Canada, I've got Campbell's Soup on sale for half price, and nobody's buying it. So the word's out. I think Campbell's could go out of business. So, I think that was it. I'm just going to take a quick look back and see if I missed something. I don't think so. I think I covered all that. Horrible, yeah, information. But I figured that's something that should get out. And folks, I know you're going to be reading labels. I'm going to play one more here, okay? It's a 1-minute video. Okay, so I'm going to bring this one up because this is a judge, I think. It is. I think it is. Where's that volume? It's cranked right up. Okay. Here's one more 1-minute video. Hang in there.
One of the fetuses?
Yes.
Okay, included skin?
Yes.
Kidney?
Yes.
Spleen?
Yes.
Heart?
Yes.
And this was just one study. So I'm going to ask you again. In your entire career, how many fetuses have you worked with?
Well, I don't remember the exact number, but quite a few when we were studying them originally before we decided to use them to make vaccines.
Have any sense? I mean, this one study had 76. How many other studies did you have that you used aborted fetuses for?
Oh, I don't remember how many.
You're aware? Are you aware that one of the objections to vaccination by the plaintiff in this case is the inclusion of aborted fetal tissue in the development of vaccines, and the fact that it's actually part of the ingredients of vaccines? One of the fetuses?
Yeah.
Doesn't get any better, does it? So we're in a very corrupt world. No doubt about that. Big money, population control, United Nations. These are all crooked, evil organizations. The ones at the top are very happy to be involved in it. Look at Carney. Look at the whole Liberal Party. I can't say anything about other parties because they're not in power. So, hey, the future's here, folks. We're living it. Read the labels. Buy locally. Cook your own food. I haven't been to a fast food joint in years. I might have hit one or two over the last year or two, just because I was out and about and my stomach was starting to eat itself, so I had to put something in there. Other than that, no. And that's it for me. I'll never go back to any of them. It's funny because when I was in the mechanic shop the other day, before that other bonehead came in, there was two old boys come in there, and they said they paid the mechanic. They owed him some money for a job, so they gave him cash, right? And one of them said, I went to KFC the other day, went through the drive-thru, and they wouldn't take my money. So I just drove away and left it sitting there. They wouldn't take cash. And I said, what the hell were you doing at KFC to begin with? He said, oh, they looked at me, the two old guys, and they said, well, he said, I was hungry. And I said, they did you a favor by not giving you that food, you know. And you know what? Both of them looked at me and they said, you're right. And I said, oh, don't ever go to those places, whatever you do, man. Enjoy your last years. Don't get caught up in that stuff. So, anyways, right on. I hope I didn't just ruin you for food. You still got to eat, but I'm just saying, keep your heads up where you're buying, read what you're getting. If it says natural flavors from now on, I'm going to put it back and I'm going to run, because they fool you. They say natural flavors, but that's not true. They're evil. We're fighting evil. So like I say, if I get the big strikes in the boot from here, I got the backup channel, the Great White North over on Rumble. But if not, if they let this slide through, then I'll see you here next week. And if not, hopefully catch me over there on the Great White North. Gotta have a backup these days. Okay, folks. Thank you very much for joining in and watching this disturbing live stream. Bye for now. God bless.